Good afternoon, everyone. Please hold. Okay. She's in there. I can't hear, but if she's clicked as muted, I did click allow her to speak. I just started talking because I thought she was set. Apologize to everybody. We're having a bit of a technical difficulty. I'll be right back. Hello again, everybody. I apologize for the delay. President Rattel and I are in two different offices and trying to work on coordinating us both being able to be on and to speak with you. So if you could just bear with us for a couple more minutes, and I appreciate your attendance here this afternoon.
I don't want the students that are on the call to worry that this is what's going to happen. Blame the president. Knowing, can you see me at all, Drew, or is this just President AMC?
It just says President AMC, and partly because I shared the screen so we can have the guidebook up. So
Yeah, great.
Well, thank you for joining us, and I want to thank all the attendees for joining us this afternoon. This will be recorded as well, so we'll post this on the Anna Maria COVID information page. So if you or somebody else want to see what's talked about or get a refresher. And then for the participants, we've opened up the Q&A function. So at the bottom of your screen, you click the Q&A, you can enter a question. So I'll be tracking those on the other screen as we go along and be able to either answer those as they come up or at the end of the session. And we'll also post any extra questions as an FAQ on the Anna Maria /COVID-19 webpage as well for information. So encourage people to check there. So the purpose of the day, I'm going to walk through some of the highlights here in the guidebook. But first of all, President Rattel would like to make some opening remarks. So, thank everybody for being here, and President Rattel, thank you for sharing some remarks with us.
Sure. Thanks, Vice President Klein. Be a little bit more formal. I apologize for my casual announcement. Any of the students who are upperclassmen know I can be a little casual, but the new students, you'll learn that as you go along. Well, welcome, everyone. I have to say, first and foremost, we can't wait to have you back. For those of you who are doing hybrid, and for those of you who are doing remote, we're still going to have a lot of chance to stay in contact and to stay in touch with each other to make sure that you have the best possible fall semester you can. There's so much in the media right now about different institutions choosing different options. Some are going totally remote, some are doing hybrid, some are having just some classes come back and not others. And we pretty well decided over the course of the summer that Anna Maria was able to accommodate our students the best way we could, in the best fashion we could, in the sense of giving you the best quality education and experience here as a student, whether it be hybrid or whether it be remote, and we're staying that course. There's been a lot of work, as you can imagine, and just this document alone, the Fall 2020 Return to Campus, processes, protocols, and guidelines. It sounds intimidating, and the 55 pages or thereabouts that there is. I guess it ended up being 43 total. Started off at 55, so I guess we should all be happy about that. But it's very thorough, and if you haven't read it, I know it's a bit like an insurance policy, but really I want you to read this very carefully, and we'll get to that in just a minute. There's about 15% of you, just so you know, who chose to go remote totally. We know we've made some changes to the logistics of what's happening here on campus. No fall sports. Unfortunately, we're going to try to get them in the spring. Certainly no large gatherings like we're kind of used to. But when you do come back, I want you to be aware of a couple of things. One, the first week or two is going to be a little bit different. There's no doubt. It's going to be a little bit, it might be a little anxious. There'll be different regulations and norms that you're not used to. But that will abate, and that will get to a point where it will be the new normal COVID-19 way of doing business for the fall semester. We hope, and we all hope very much, that come the spring, we'll get to a little bit different status, and we'll be at level 4 based on the Massachusetts doctrine. But you know that will happen, and we'll keep you abreast of that as the semester goes on. But right now, you should know how hard the faculty have worked to put the programs in a remote status that allow you to have the fullest experience educationally. You're going to be having contact with many of your faculty. They'll be doing regular office hours, etc. So you'll be able to reach out to them at any time if you're not already on campus seeing them. Dining will be a little bit different, but it'll be much like you do when you go to a restaurant now, with open table, with reservations, and certainly to-go options. In the res halls, if you are a resident student, you're going to be having different protocols and different types of living arrangements. I know in some cases it may not be exactly what you wanted, but it will work out well. And above all, everything has been socially distanced appropriately according to the standards that have been set to us by public health officials in the state of Massachusetts, along with making sure that every possible avenue is cleaned and everything is in the highest standards of keeping you safe and healthy. That is going to depend on you as well. I want you to know that this booklet is going to be kind of your doctrine of etiquette and policies that we're going to expect you to adhere to, and we're going to take it very seriously. If in the past there were incidents of behavior that was not quite up to par to what our social standards were or our student handbook called for, that's one thing. Whether you had too much to drink or there was partying going on and guests that may or may not should have been around, it's a different ballgame right now. It's a pandemic. And it isn't just a Paxton, and it isn't just Worcester, and it isn't just New England. It's the globe. And we have to be very serious about this, and we will take it very seriously. So bear that in mind when you come back. This is not a prison sentence. This is not something that I want you to feel will be something so restrictive that you're not going to be able to enjoy your friends and the educational experience that you have. But you have to understand that we have to adhere to these protocols very carefully. So I ask for your cooperation. I ask you to be the great students that you always are. And for the new students, you will experience a wonderful time here at Anna Maria. And we will do everything in our power to make it not only for our new students, but our returning students, a good fall semester for everyone. That being said, I'm going to turn it over now to Drew so he can highlight to you what it is in this document for the processes, protocols, and guidelines that he thinks, and we all think you should be aware of. So thank you, Drew.
Okay, thank you, President Rattel. So before I dive in, I just want everybody to know, how this was developed. We had a lot of people on campus working on this. We had a lot of input from the state of Massachusetts. They had a committee on the reopening for the state with a subcommittee focused on higher education. There's a lot of national information that came about. Johns Hopkins University was a leader in that field and provided a lot of information. College resources, Town of Paxton has been wonderful in the communication we have with the Department of Public Health representatives from Paxton. And incredibly helpful was a student advisory committee I met with once a week through the summer. I know a couple of you are on the call today. And they expressed an interest in forming a student organization that would continue to meet throughout the semester, helping to educate fellow students about the importance of following these guidelines. So, if you're interested in being part of that, let me know. I'll put you in touch with the students who want to take the leadership on that. And, I'm really proud that the students see this as a student-to-student process of providing the leadership and the education in addition to what we're doing as the college administration, because, and they put it even better than I could, if we don't do it right, we won't have a next semester. That was a quote from one of the first meetings. And, I think you'll hear from the students who are part of that. That's been a big part of that. So a lot of what we talk about today, and you'll see in this document, actually came from your fellow students as some really good suggestions in terms of, what we need to do and what's feasible for us to do. Um, I'm going to jump, through the document. I'm not going to cover all 42 pages, but some of the things that I really want to make sure that we talk about, that you hear, that you talk about with your peers, and it'll be included in the recording. And, first is starting with a general statement on the campus guidelines and the safety protocols we have in place. The second paragraph on this page, the first priority of what we're doing does remain the safety and well-being of our students, faculty, and staff, all the community members through the pandemic. We're hoping that a vaccine or treatment will be made available to the public, and we'll adjust accordingly as that becomes available, but it doesn't look like that'll be during the fall semester. So everything we're talking about right now, we fully expect to be in place through the fall semester. Bolded here in the yellow, let's start here. Anybody entering campus must at the minimum follow these guidelines. Wearing a face covering, wearing a mask. You'll see a couple sections here about a mask. Bandana, which is open at the bottom, is not really considered an acceptable mask. If you're not in your room, or an employee who's not alone in their office, then you should be wearing a mask. Whether you're walking down the hallway, walking around campus, in class, in the dining hall, when you're not eating, of course, we expect everybody to be wearing a mask. We'll talk a little bit about sanctions in a little while, but masks are non-negotiable, required everywhere on campus. If there's anybody who's got a very serious problem with that, we feel comfortable that we're providing remote offerings for there, but for people on campus, and as we see across the country, it makes the biggest difference in containing the spread of the virus, and so that's why that's always going to be important here. The second, social distancing policies of 6 feet or more. We'll have that marked on campus in places where there would be lines. Rooms are set up that way. Classrooms are set up with desks 6 feet apart. If you stay 6 feet apart from somebody wearing a mask, somebody tests positive, you won't need to be part of the contact tracing. You won't need to be somebody who needs to be quarantined, because you followed these policies. Again, following everything that the guidelines that are in here. You'll be emailed a waiver of liability before you return, and then self-identify any COVID-19 symptoms. And we'll talk in a little while about exactly how that's going to happen. Visitors and guests prohibited from campus. No guests in the residence halls. The exceptions being people coming for tours, and those are going to be very strictly monitored and structured, and essential vendors and contractors. So we're going to try to keep people who don't need to be here not here, again, to mitigate the possibility of contact with somebody who's been exposed to the virus, not part of our community. Traveling to Massachusetts from out of state. This paragraph is an excellent example of how quickly things change. Under the current state guidelines, travelers from, and it lists 7 states, are exempt from this directive. This was published on Monday. On Tuesday, Governor Baker added Rhode Island to the high-risk states. So this became out of date the day after it was published. I'll be sending an email to resident students from Rhode Island and all the states outside of New England, New Jersey, other than that, who need to follow this process. And what the state's requiring to do now is either show up and submit a test showing a negative result that was taken within 72 hours of you coming to Massachusetts. So you can get tested at home, bring the test that shows you're negative, and you don't need to quarantine. Or you need to quarantine on campus until you've had 1 negative test. We're setting up our testing protocols, so you'll be able to test the day you move in. So within 24 hours of the lab receiving the test, you'll have a result. So it could be as little as a 1-day quarantine when you're here. But we're encouraging everybody, if you have access to a test in your community, to take it before you arrive. And that way you don't have to arrive. Or if it does turn out that you're positive, you can stay home and isolate at home and start your classes remotely. And then when you're cleared to return, come in and join us and take your classes that way. So again, all resident students who are impacted by this are going to get a separate email from me tomorrow afternoon, including a link to the state form, which has the state policy and a form that the state of Massachusetts wants everybody to fill out for part of that. And then compliance and enforcement of the COVID-19 policies. As President Rattel said, a lot of things that happen on campus we look at as something that may need to be sanctioned, may be treated as a learning experience, and let's kind of move on and become a positive force in the community, as I like to say. violation of the COVID-19 policies are putting other people at risk. And so the attitude we're taking there is very strict. If you're a resident student and you bring somebody in from off campus into the residence hall, you'll lose your housing for the rest of the semester on the first offense. If you bring somebody from another building on campus who's not supposed to be in your building, so upper class students can travel between the upper class halls, the new students will stay in Madonna. If there's a violation of those policies, the second offense of that policy, you lose your housing. And then each room will have occupancy limits, and we'll talk about that shortly, but a violation of the occupancy limits of the halls could mean you lose your housing after the first offense. Those of you who've been here and have interacted with me know that we don't have a lot of policies that have strict enforcement for first offenses. A lot of these things we talk about are indeed learning and growing experiences. This isn't that case with COVID-19. So any activities, failure to wear a mask flagrantly, there'll be a fine and then a removal from campus on the second or third offense, depending on the nature of the offense. We're going to take this very seriously, and you want to make sure that that's clear with you, it's clear with your peers. People will be notified of that when they come on campus. And I hope and pray that people follow that and we don't have an example. We're not going to make an example of somebody just for the sake of doing it, but if somebody does violate the policies early, not knowing and not having thought about it is not going to be a valid excuse. So, I encourage you, please be aware of that and know that the reason we're doing that is for everybody's safety, in our community, both, fellow students and everybody who interacts with the students, the faculty and staff as well. So these are very important guidelines for us. With our campus health and safety measures, most people are bringing their own PPE. We'll have welcome packages for the residents who come on campus that will include a mask. We'll have some for commuters to come by and pick up as well. So we'll have like an Anna Maria logo mask. But we hope that people have multiple. There will be the opportunity, I believe the bookstore will have some on sale. We'll have some in the testing area and other areas. So if your mask breaks or you don't have one, you need one in an emergency, we'll be able to provide those on a case-by-case basis. But think about it, show up with masks ahead of time. We've got safety measures across campus. We've added cleaning and hygiene installations, over 150 hand sanitizer dispensers around campus, in addition to the 75 or so that we already had in place. We have sanitizing wipe dispensers. The housekeeping staff has the electrostatic sanitizing sprayer. So when they do a deep clean of rooms, particularly classrooms every night, the health center, they'll be using that which has been most effective in sanitizing and disinfecting rooms. It's what you see used commercially, in airplanes and other high traffic areas. You'll see offices have plexiglass barriers, touchless plumbing wherever we could retrofit there. Anything we can do to minimize high touch areas, to increase the cleaning schedule of high touch areas. And then, the bottom diagram shows there's so much that we need to do individually. And I don't say just you as students, but everybody, constantly kind of washing their hands, including but not limited to the disinfectant. The Purell is wonderful, but soap and water is even more so. Disinfecting surfaces, and again, consistently and constantly using the face mask in all situations. All right. We will be testing anybody on campus regularly twice a week. So all students will be twice a week. All faculty here all the time. All the staff who are here all the time would be tested twice weekly. We're using a program through the Broad Institute, which is located in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's affiliated with MIT and Harvard universities. And students will go to one of two testing sites on campus. You'll be giving a swab. There's a diagram here. You'll self-swab. You'll do it at the testing site right now to start to make sure everybody kind of understands what's needed to be done. It is not the deep swab that was the original test, in March and April when tests first started coming out. So as the scientists there say, it's like rubbing a Q-tip under the front of your nose. You put it in a container, hand it in, it'll be given a barcode. The courier picks everything up at 6 o'clock at night. So by 6 o'clock the following evening or so, you'll get a result back. Again, the result will come through an app called the Co-Verified app. We are right now uploading everybody into that. We have the onboarding meeting early next week with the people, and then we'll put out the notice before you come to campus, how to download the app and get set in that. So, this is all what we're working on now. Through this app, you will get your result of the test as soon as the lab has determined it. So they're working 24/7. You get tested on a Wednesday and Courier picks it up at 6 o'clock and it runs through and it kicks out at 2:30 in the morning. Your app will have a notification at 2:30 in the morning. And it'll either say negative or positive. If you get a positive in the middle of the night, you'll be told stay where you are and contact health services first thing in the morning. If you get a positive during the day, you get notified to return to your room and call health services immediately, and we would walk you through that process. Also through the app, you will list your symptoms each day, so you confirm that you don't have a fever, or if you do, indicate that, or any of the other symptoms that are common with COVID-19. And you see on this example, there's a green bar that says clear. If for any reason you haven't entered your symptoms, or you've got a positive test, or you've missed more than 2 testing cycles that you were scheduled for, because you'll be scheduled what days to go, in the twice a week, that will be a red, not clear. And if you're asked to show that, like some faculty may say, please show me your clearance before you come into the classroom, or offices may do the same, or you may be asked that in the residence halls as well. If it's not clear, you'll be instructed to go back to your room, isolate yourself, and contact health services so we can determine why. If it's because of a test, you'll be told to either take a test immediately or leave campus until such time that you do. If it's because of a symptom, you will talk to the nurse and determine whether you need to go to an urgent care or emergency room, or have a test and see what the test result says. So we're there to talk you through the process, and you'll get immediate information. So there's no delay. You don't need to wait for a phone call or anything like that, after you've taken the tests. The kind of, what do we do? What happens if there's a positive test? First off, for the student who tests positive, they'll need to isolate. Students who live within 150 miles of campus will be instructed to isolate at home. Right? Students who live outside that range will isolate on the lower levels of Madonna Hall. We're setting up those wings as the isolation wings. It's important that if somebody can isolate at home, we do that to preserve as much space as we can. Also, then they have access to their primary care physician, and kind of the food and comfort of their own home, rather than be isolated in a single room in Madonna Hall. At that point, the contact tracing will begin. And so what that means is you'll get a call from our health services office, most likely from Nurse Amy, our nursing campus, who will ask you some questions. Where have you been in the last 24, 36, 72 hours? Who have you been in contact with, particularly when you weren't wearing a mask? Anybody who you were within 6 feet of for longer than 15 minutes. So for instance, our classes, you'll be wearing a mask in class. The desks are 6 feet or more apart. So if somebody has a positive test, we do not need to quarantine everybody in the class if everybody kept their 6-foot distance and wore their mask. It's, people who are closer. So maybe a roommate, maybe teammates if you're an athlete, maybe, I had this friend, we thought we were okay. I don't know where one of us got exposed. And there's no shame in that. We just need to identify who it is, because the quicker we can contact those people and have them quarantine, the more we can keep the R+ value down. In other words, restrict further outbreak on the campus. We see this works well. The communities with good contact tracing programs, are staying in front of that, and they're not having outbreaks on their campus. The contact tracers will be people from the campus, or it could be the local Department of Public Health. And then if our load becomes big that we couldn't handle that, we would turn it over to the state for the contact tracing collaborative with the state of Massachusetts. So we would begin right away, and we're pretty happy with the process we have in place to make sure it happens immediately. With the quarantine, it's similar to the isolation. If you need to quarantine, it's for believe the CDC right now is saying 14 days. If that changes, we'll change that along. If you live within 150 miles, you'll be quarantining at home. Since all classes are being offered in a remote option, you won't miss any classes if you're isolating or quarantining. Isolating with people who've tested positive, quarantine for the contact. You'll be able to log in, keep up with your classes, and there won't be an academic penalty for doing so. But again, it's the, when there are positive tests, it's the best way to contain any spread of the virus. And so we ask people to answer the call when they get called by a contact tracer, and more importantly, follow the directions about isolating and quarantining. And again, a lot more detailed information about this in the manual itself. I don't want to read every line for you. And then you'll notice when you read it, we have the same protocols in for employees and faculty. We care that everybody is healthy and everybody's kind of keeping everybody around them safe. And then, we'll do the proper level of notification to the community. So we won't share individual names, but when there are positive cases on campus, the community will know. Right now we're considering, like, for instance, a weekly dashboard that you would see how many, but, and that'll help us, if that way, if you hear there's rumors that there's cases, you'll know whether that's true or not, because we're going to be transparent with this. It wouldn't be fair to do it otherwise. In fact, it would be, unsafe if we were to do it otherwise at all. We'll talk a little bit about the facilities. We've looked at building capacities, room capacities, the guidance we have from the state. No more than 8 people per 1,000 square feet. We can have 25 people in a room for a gathering. We can have more than that for an instructional purpose. So for instance, we can have 50 people in ZECO for a class, as long as, again, spread out, wearing masks, more than 6 feet apart. I feel like I should have a button I just press to say that every time I want to say that, to save my voice, but I can't stress it enough. You'll see buildings, we have in-out, exit only, entrance only in buildings to try to create some one direction flow. In the hallways, you'll see wall signage and floor decals to encourage distancing. Again, the bathrooms, either plexiglass barriers and spreading people out. Elevators, limit of 2 people when possible. Encourage people to take stairs if at all possible. We have additional cleaning staff on campus. We've installed new air filters and the HVAC. Anything we can do from a facilities point of view, we've been conscious to put into place to make sure we're providing a safe environment from that as well. And if you see something that you think could be improved, again, we'd want you to let us know. Excuse me, campus life and living on campus. I'll talk about the residence halls a little bit. I know I touched a little bit about the guest policy. First and foremost, we're hearing a lot about the, some rooming assignments have changed for upper class students. Some new students didn't get the roommate that they had selected or maybe had hoped for. Some of the very serious guidance that we've received is to provide, what's called cohort or pod kind of housing wherever possible. So, when we can, students who are going to be doing other activities together, if they're also living together, it helps mitigate the possibility of the spread of the virus. We can't do anything that's going to totally eliminate all possibilities, but if groups that are going to be together in other areas are also living together, it minimizes the exposure for those groups. For us and for a lot of schools like us, the groups that make the most sense to do that are athletics. One of the reasons that we're doing that with athletics is because even though the fall schedules have been canceled, they're still going to practice together through the semester. So after a few weeks of being on campus, they'll be ramping up their practices, their activities, staying involved from athletics. Athletics is doing a lot of things to keep people in place. They're going to use the performance face masks to minimize it, but it's still an activity where they're breathing a little bit harder, droplets are traveling a little bit further. There's a little bit higher risk of exposure in athletic than there is in other day-to-day activities on campus. So, so that's why we chose that and been very strict about that. Somebody says, well, if I have a friend who's an athlete on a different team, can't we live together? Then can we then say, we agree to live together, but we're on different teams? We can't take that risk, because if one team has a case and a possible outbreak or possible exposure, and you come back to your roommate and share it with them, then we might be jeopardizing that other team. And that's why we've done that. We know that for some people, it may not be the people that you're hoping to be living with. We're going to look closely, you know, and again, no guarantees. I follow the news carefully. I don't know if we'll have an ability to have vaccines by February, but if we do, we'll do a massive overhaul with the housing and put people back, you know, in kind of more of preferred choice housing situations. But, you know, we're getting a lot of questions on that. We're really not going to be able to make any moves with that, and just really beg your indulgence, you know, with that for the fall semester. Again, you know, outside the rooms, we do expect students, you know, to wear their masks. When other students who are, you know, not in your pod or inside your rooms, you should wear your mask and observe the room occupancies. The kitchens in the residence halls will be closed at the start of the semester. You know, and to do that, there'll be just too much common touching of things like that. So so they'll be closed. You know, there was a question posted in the Q&A. You know, does that mean we can bring, you know, toasters or small appliances into our rooms? Unfortunately, no. We cannot make that change because of fire safety rules. The reason we don't allow toaster ovens or toasters in the rooms is the threat of fire. So again, you'd be limited to microwave or any appliances that are currently already allowed. You know, like a Keurig, and I know some people use their Keurigs to make their pot of soup or their ramen noodles, but we can't, you know, change the policies for that. You know, if we can find a way to provide, you know, safe access to a toaster oven or something in a common area, we'll do that. But right now we haven't been able to figure out a way to do that. So that's not something we'll be able to provide for the fall semester. You know, stairwells, common areas, they'll be open as much as possible. We've removed a lot of the furniture, like the couches, so that you'll see single chairs and spread out. You know, that allow people to still congregate and be in there, as long as we're paying attention to occupancy, staying 6 feet apart. You know, RAs and groups can still have some small group activities and still commute together, because I know that that's an important part of it. And then cleaning activities will continue in the common spaces. Laundry rooms will be open. And again, face masks and social distancing. We'll post occupancy limits. And then ask people, we're actually removing things like the folding table, so people, when they have their clothes out of the dryer, will be encouraged to bring them back to the room to do the folding for those of you who fold, and spend as little time there as possible, but kind of monitor the flow there so people aren't congregating in there. And then for the residence halls that have common bathrooms, cleaning schedules have been ramped up. There'll be a deep cleaning at least once a day. That includes things like shower curtains, all the high touch areas, and also increased cleanings, regular cleanings through the day. Again, particularly of the high touch items like sinks, showers, and anything else that we didn't do the no touch retrofits in. And then with room lockouts, please carry your key with you, you know, to minimize exposure of, you know, the RAs, the RDs, public safety. We will institute charges for multiple lockouts. So, you know, the first time you forget a key, we're not going to charge you, but after that, lockout charges will be in place. And again, other items in the website about packing lists, room condition policy. We're moving a lot of the forms that used to be on paper online, so you'll be able to do those easier. I was asked a question about the quarantining and the isolating will both be in lower level Madonna. Not on the same wing. So somebody who's isolating is isolating because they had a positive test. Somebody who's quarantining is somebody who was exposed to somebody positive, but they haven't been positive yet. So it wouldn't be safe to put them in the same wing as the positive test. So depending on our numbers, if we can use the other wing in Madonna for the quarantine, we'll do that. If 2 roommates are both in the same situation in terms of quarantining, there's very likelihood they'll quarantine in their room because they're both in the same situation. But if only one has been exposed and we need to remove them, that's when we'll use the other wing. But we won't be putting people who've been exposed in the same wing as somebody who is quarantining because they had a positive test. So thank you for that question. We are not restricting people from traveling out of campus, but strongly discouraging it. So again, we've been asked if my family lives nearby, if you're not going to a high risk state, yes, we can't stop you from going to see the family. We just ask people on campus or off campus to continue to follow safe practices. One of the reasons that we feel a little more, I don't say comfortable is the right word, but by having the twice weekly testing, if somebody is exposed, we'll find out pretty quickly because they'll be being tested twice a week. So, strongly encouraging people to stay on campus as much as possible. But if you need to see your family, somebody asked can we wear a mask if we go food shopping? We have people who work off campus. We have people with internships. We know there'd be some traveling on or off campus, but continue to stress all that we're asking people to do in terms of safety protocols really comes into place whether you're on or off campus, and people keep that in mind. Our guest policies, specifically for the residence halls, again, as I said earlier, no outside guests permitted in the halls till further notice. So that includes anybody with no affiliation. If your parents were to come and visit you, you need to come and meet with them outside. They can drive up, they can pick you up and drive you somewhere. But no guests at all in the residence halls. And by the way, that's consistent with all the colleges in the Worcester area. We've talked about that from the beginning. So your friends at local schools, they'll be living under the same set of guidelines with that. We are letting guests move from upper class buildings. Within the first week, we're asking everybody to stay put so we can kind of get through the cycle of testing. But after that, upper class students can move between St. Anne, Alumni, and Coughlin as long as they're signed in. You'll be informed about the process with that and not violating the occupancy for individual rooms. And first year students can visit each other throughout Madonna Hall. Rooms that are double halls, the occupancy is 4, 2 residents and 2 guests. Single occupancy rooms, the maximum occupancy is 2, 1 resident and 1 guest. And these are all determined based on the square footage of these rooms. In the suites, the maximum occupancy in a suite in St. Anne is 10. And again, I know that is less than twice the number of occupants, but the square footage of the room, particularly in the common space, dictates that occupancy number for that. And again, there's an online guest registration form, which includes, if you're in St. Anne's and bringing a guest from South Hall or Alumni Hall, that needs to be filled out because, of course, there wouldn't be any guests coming in from off campus. And again, students found a violation of the guest policy, we're going to remove you from housing because you really are endangering everybody on campus. Let me talk about dining services for a bit. With the dining locations, we're going to use OpenTable. That's an app that a lot of restaurants use for reservations. We have set our dining hall up with tables only, 4 seats at a table, spread them out per the protocols given by the state. And we can actually fit 106 people in the dining hall. We're going to stagger it, so it won't necessarily be that crowded at any one time, but we have the flexibility there. So you would reserve a table of 4 through the OpenTable. We'd know when you were coming, the dining staff would know to expect you. And then you could sit at that table, and then it wouldn't be open again for reservation until it's been disinfected by the dining staff. So between people sitting at a table, each table will get a full disinfection. There's also the ability to come to the dining hall and take a meal to go, or to order a meal to go through the hub. And again, all these will be pre-order. You'll have an online application. You can prepay with your points or your credit card if you're using cash for those. And with the hub, we ask that you order 30 minutes in advance so the food can be prepared and ready for you to pick it up and bring it back elsewhere. So, we've looked at that. We're really providing 3 opportunities: the hub grab and go, the dining hall grab and go, or sitting in the dining hall by reservation. We've increased outdoor seating all over campus, both around the campus center itself, and around the residence halls with picnic tables and the Adirondack chairs. So you'll have the ability um, to eat outside on campus if you don't want to go back to your room to eat as well. There's a couple other final things. Campus ministry will still be active on campus. Melissa has set up the chapel, so there's adequate spacing, so we'll still be able to have daily mass and communion services Monday through Thursday, and Sunday mass at 5 for residents only. So I know that we fortunate enough to welcome Paxton residents to celebrate mass with us in most circumstances, but during the fall we won't be able to do that. So again, if you're a resident student, you won't, and you're concerned about that, know that it'll be other residents. And again, at Mass, we'd ask you to wear your mask, except you're accepting the Holy Communion, of course, if you chose to do so. And the last thing I want to talk about, and I see a couple other questions are coming in, so we'll get to those as well. But we're calling it the AMCAP Pledge. So everybody, we're going to expect to read this and sign this, students and employees alike. And it's an acknowledgement that this is up to all of us. We can take a pledge to be part of the solution and make sure that we all stay safe. So, again, it's a reminder of, all the things that we agreed to do, to take part in the testing, to, isolate, to quarantine, to submit my symptoms daily through the app. We've tried to make this as easy as possible to comply with the app. Again, wearing the face mask, there's some guidance on the face masks. And we're asking people to be aware of kind of what they're doing with their face mask. I think there's some fun ways to make it a platform for self-expression. And we ask that people do it appropriately. And there's just a few things here that would be included of maybe some inappropriate ideas we would not want people doing, but and just felt kind of obligated to include that as well. And then everybody will get this, and we'll be sending this out through a DocuSign or another program, so you will sign this electronically, and we'll know who has and be able to kind of follow up with that. But really, it's less about the compliance of doing it, but the knowledge that you've read this, you've thought about it, what it's going to take to be a member of the community this year, and be an active part of doing it well and doing it the right way. And again, to quote the student from the first meeting, if we don't do this right in the fall, we won't have a spring semester. So, that's really the purpose of this. And again, I thank the members of our student advisory committee who, took a look at the first draft and inserted a lot of kind of what's in here as well. So a lot of this was put together by your fellow students. So I want to thank you. I think the only other question here that we haven't answered yet, two questions. First, when we come back to campus from home, will we have to do the quarantine process? If home is in one of the high-risk states, yes, you'd have to come back and quarantine in place until you run through the test cycle. If home is one of the New England states, not Rhode Island, sorry, Rhode Island people, or not New York, New Jersey, or Hawaii, those are the states that Massachusetts currently considers low risk. You would not need to quarantine if you come back from those. So if you go home to Vermont, come back here, you don't have to quarantine, no. And these states are determined by the state of Massachusetts. So we're following Governor Baker's guidelines on all of those. And then, the lab that we're working with is approved by the FDA to do the nasal swab tests. So we will not be providing the antibody tests on campus. A lot of conversation about that on other campuses in the state and with the Board of Health. It's actually a little bit controversial with some of the Board of Health folks. I won't get too far into detail, but sometimes it'll show up as a false positive because it may show the antibody if you were positive before, but now you're not susceptible, but the antibodies could still be in there. So mostly because the lab we're working with, which has a 24-hour turnaround, has a nasal swab. At this point in time, we don't have plan to change to bring on the antibody tests. However, if testing technology changes in the availability, we're not ruling it out of hand, but I don't expect to see that. Thank you for that question. All right. Before we leave, there's one thing that I wanted to highlight a little bit earlier. So I'm going to jump back up to the compliance question. Jim, no, we're not meeting as a committee tonight because I thought some of you would be here. We'll restart meetings next week. On the compliance, we have set up a hotline similar to the National Basketball Association, but you know, I kind of threw it out to the meeting. Unanimous support from the students and staff alike. We want anybody in the community, if they see something that they think needs to be reported, and this could be an improvement in terms of what we're doing as a college, but also students or employees who they see not following the rules and jeopardizing all of us. There's an email here, covidreport@annemarie.edu, or a phone number. With the phone number, the voicemail will be forwarded. It comes to myself or to Mike Myers. Mike is our Vice President for Administration. So two vice presidents will see it. We will act on it. You know, if you wish it to be anonymous, we will do that. You know, the point is to get in, correct the behavior, remove somebody if that's what it takes to do. But, you know, we want to make sure everybody not only has the obligation to follow it, but has the ability to report something if they see that it's not being followed. Apologize for not touching that earlier, but, you know, it might be a good way to wrap up as well. Well, again, thank you, President Rattel. Thank you for being here as well. I don't know if you have any final comments, but to the students, thank you very much for your attention today. And again, we'll ask that this get posted within a day or two on our COVID-19 information site, so we have that as well.
Yeah, the only comments I have, Drew, just a couple. First of all, thank you, as usual, very thorough. This document has been well received by all the members of the community. It's really a testimony to the hard work that everyone's done. I'd like the students to also know that on Monday, it isn't just a town hall with the students. We're also having a town hall with all our faculty, staff, and administration, going over the same points pretty much that we discussed today with you. So this is not just exclusively a discussion with students. It involves the entire community. The board as well is going to be meeting with me and the vice presidents on Friday. They will be apprised of all these notes, and they also will be involved with making sure that we're adhering to what is best in common practice. And finally, I'd just like to make sure that you know this isn't the last time you can reach out and ask questions. You have still a couple of weeks of vacation. I hope you enjoy them with your family and your friends safely, as indicated by Vice President Klein. But truly enjoy the rest of your summer. Come back ready to get back to work. I say this many times at the beginning of the semester. It will be rigorous. It will be demanding. We're going to challenge you academically, socially, and physically. So we want you to come back prepared to enter the fall semester as you would any other semester. But know that you can reach out at any time to any of us if you have any questions. We're here for you to make sure that you have all the information you need. And again, I thank Vice President Klein and Vice President Myers particularly for the work that we did to compile this document.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I thank everybody for being here. And again, any other questions, please reach out. Thank you.